right, welcome everybody to Flrysh. We are here yet. It's like we've taken a big road trip together, and we're asking, Mom, are we there yet? The answer is yes. So welcome, and for those of us watching on the live stream who may not have watched before, Flrysh is, first, my name is Milena, and you're watching us at the Center for Spiritual Living in Granada Hills. Yay, CSLGH. And Flrysh is a program that combines ecocentric creative connection, or it could be ecocentric. I haven't quite decided which one I like better. Daniel, our guest from the future. The future of the show, anyway, maybe not. Okay, so I'll just interchange them, whatever comes up. So ecocentric creative connection, community eco-heroism, and inspired action for the planet. And I can see Sylvia in our live audience going, what are all those words together? So all together, it's Flrysh. We connect with each other here, and then we go out and do a field trip together to connect with each other and the environment and our community. So that is the point. We're also aligned with the Order of the Sacred Earth. You can see their logo down in the corner of the slide. And they invite us to join them in this vow, which I ask you to join me in saying aloud. I promise to be the best lover and defender of the earth that I can be. Very well done, and bless you. So the beauty of that is it allows us to start where we are and take a step forward from there, doing the best we can in every moment, in every situation. And there's no guilt. It's just do the best we can right now for the earth, and we know that it also benefits us. We're also aligned with IONS, which is short for the Institute of Noetic Sciences. They're a nonprofit organization inspired by science and transformed by experience. Ooh. And they're deepening the way that we understand ourselves, our world, and our purpose through research and education on consciousness, human potential, and transformation, personal and social. So it's pretty exciting that they wanted to be our friend as much as I wanted to be their friend. So our topic today, and it came together kind of synchronistically. I started off wanting to talk about herbs, and then I found through Facebook. Don't let anybody tell you Facebook can't be a good tool for consciousness. Through Facebook, I saw that this one particular woman had a lot of the same connections I had, but from different areas of my life. So I asked her to come and be on the show. So you will be hearing a little bit later from Martina Eberhard, because she knows a lot about Chinese herbs specifically, and the whole Chinese healing system, but she'll tell you more about that because I might be saying it wrong. And then I saw also on Facebook that the interfaith, there's a lot of letters there, Solidarity Network was having an event about climate action and environmental justice. They were calling people to come and have a discussion and plan action. And I really wanted to be there, but I couldn't be. So I wrote like 3 different letters on Facebook, on Gmail, wrote to a friend I know who's part of it, and Daniel is here tonight to talk to us about that. So I think they connect because when I think about herbs, I think about how throughout history people have been using them and across cultures. So if you look at Chinese culture, at Indian culture, all cultures, this is nature's medicine. So they've been turning to it for a long time. And so it connects with interfaith, because faith is essentially energy translated to whatever culture we're in and how we express it and celebrate it together. So I think it'll work. Let's watch and see. It's an experiment like every week. So from the starting point of something as central to our being as the things we eat, food, last episode we talked with Erin Riley about growing vegetables in our garden and how that's healthy and sustainable for us and the earth. And so I felt talking about herbs and planting them in our garden was a good sort of follow-up to that. And I found a documentary about it, which is one of the things I like to do. So we're going to watch a little clip now of a documentary called Food as Medicine. And here we go. All right. So, food for thought, huh? Did I take the remote? There it is. Okay. I found that really inspiring, and it reminds me every time I make a choice about what I'm going to eat, I have a choice, and I can choose something new that might make me feel better than I already do. A few things I wanted to share with you from my own life, which is largely taking place in my imagination. I love pop culture, and so that's usually my source for information first before I go to find, then I'll research and find the real information that inspired it. So when I think of herbs, I think of the book series Outlander, which is also now a TV series. And in that, a woman initially from the 40s and later from the 60s goes back in time to the 1700s. And she's put in a place where she's learning about herbs and what can help people and what can hurt people. And so I'm learning as I go on this journey with her. And the author, Diana Gabaldon, put together all of her research after she wrote the books into, it's now 2 volumes, that you can look up things that she learned in her research, largely about what was believed and understood at the time with what they knew about health and under their theories of whether you're balancing humors in the body or different ideas. But it made me think of, at one point in the book, she is in America and she meets a Native American medicine woman and learns from her because she's open to it. She doesn't feel like she knows everything just because she's from the Western world. And she learns about the local plants and what's used for healing in their culture. So again, it's cross-cultural sharing. We all have a lot that we can learn from each other. And then last night we had some visitors to our house, and a young man that I had never met before, whose name was Ixtli, I-X-T-L-I. And I only know that that's how it was spelled because my friend texted me before she came over, and we're bringing Connor's friend Ixtli. And so, of course, I had to look that up to see what kind of name it was, what it might mean. And in searching, I found, again on Facebook, which was not my primary, I didn't go straight to Facebook to look for it, but I ended up there. There's a page called Curanderismo, and it's the healing art of Mexico. And on their page, it explains a quote, in Ixtli in Yoyotl, I think it's how it's pronounced, it's Nahuatl is the language. In Spanish, it's la cara, el corazón. In English, it's the face and the heart. And it's an important phrase in Aztec thought, meaning the development of our face, which is ourself, and our heart, which is heart-mind connection, through education and spiritual practices with the assistance and blessings of wise men and wise women who they would consider the elders. And the writer goes on to say, to me at this time, it includes decolonizing one's mind. In my view, this act of disengaging from the many misrepresentations in history books through critical thinking and an open mind, and learning about the importance of semantics, settler versus invader, as an example, as well as learning more about our respective cultures and contributions, is critically important for natives as well as non-natives, and clarifies that this is an ongoing process. So I thought that that kind of would lead perfectly into the music video, the first of two that I chose for this episode, which is called Medicine. And in the chorus, they sing Medicine Woman, Medicine Man. So if our lovely and talented AV team will bring up the video from Rising Appalachia called Medicine, we'll get our grooves on. And we can listen for the lyrics. Find your teachers in the voice of the forests. Unplug, you can't ignore this. Wisdom of the voiceless. Remedies are bountiful and surround us. From the garden to the farthest, prayers made of stardust. Find your healing in the music that calls you, the voice that enthralls you. What do you belong to? So no pressure following that. I think we have a medicine woman right here. I'm going to call you that. So allow me to introduce Martina Eberhard. Come on up. Yes, applause. And so as I was saying, I found that on Facebook we had a lot of the same connections. We actually went to high school together.
Yes, we did.
And so I was used to seeing her connected to other high school friends. And then I started coming here and noticing she was Facebook friends with everybody at CSL, Granada Hills. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen her there. And yet she knows all these people. And then our guest last episode, Erin Riley, who was talking about Hope Gardens and growing vegetables in your garden, I became her Facebook friend after the show last time, and I saw that Martina had wished her a happy birthday, and I'm like, Martina knows her too? How does Martina know everybody? And then I thought, well, I better have her on the show. So here she is.
It's a very small circle.
It seems like it, but it's an energetic draw that we all find
Absolutely.
each other. We're going to put the mic closer to you so the circle gets smaller for the people watching too. So, tell me what you've been doing since high school. No, let's focus.
Wow.
Let's focus on herbs and
Sure.
Chinese herbs specifically, and tell me how that is part of what you do now since high school.
Yeah, well, it's been part of my life for close to a little over 15 years now. And I began my journey in Chinese medicine around 1998, and Chinese herbs was a part of the 4 years master's program at Emperor's College in Santa Monica, one of a few actual Chinese medicine colleges in the LA area.
So on your website, I noticed it says Martina Eberhard, MSOM LAC, and I had to look up what that was. I can tell you, you can tell me if I'm right. Master of Science in Oriental Medicine.
Yes.
That sounds impressive. And licensed acupuncturist.
Correct.
All right. I did good with my Googling.
Yes, you did.
So, what got you into this field? Because it seems, a girl from the Valley. How do you
Right.
find Chinese herbal medicine or traditional medicine?
Right. Well, I found that a lot of my colleagues also that I went to school with have similar stories as I do. And at one point or another in my life story, I had a health condition where I sought out treatment. And for me, at one point, it was shingles at 28. And I went the regular conventional medicine route, and all they had to offer me for what they said was coming, which was a lot of really deep nerve pain, was morphine.
Oh.
And I said, well, wait a minute. I know where that goes, and I don't want to follow down that road. Hang on a second, and I'll be back. She's like, oh, yeah, just come back when, it gets really bad. We have that for you. I'm like, yeah, that's not what I want. And, boy, back in the day when there was very little internet, I somehow found my way to Santa Monica. I ended up being a patient at Emperor's College for a solid 6 weeks. And during that time, not only did the shingles pain clear up, but then a few other extras started to health benefits I derived from that as well, and not understanding then what I know now, that they basically were treating the liver organ, and so vision issues and other menstruation issues and things like that for women especially were kind of dealt with as a nice byproduct in addition to what I went there for. And then by the end of it, I kind of looked around and said, I really like this place. What do I need to do to start, this program? And my intern said, hold your horses. Why don't you just take one night class? You have a day job, keep it. See if you actually resonate with it. And so I took a basic class in yin and yang. It was a night class, and I was hooked. I fell in love with it, the poetry of it, the art of it, and the logic of it, everything in life breaks down into yin and yang, and literally the balance of those two translates to physical, mental, emotional, spiritual balance. And that's what I loved about it. And so I just quit my job and I went full time and never looked back. And it is literally the reason why I wake up every morning. I love doing this.
That's a great story, and I love hearing that. And when we connected for you to come on this show, you said, last time I heard you were living in some other country.
Yeah.
And so when I was living in Sri Lanka, they're based in the Ayurvedic tradition, which is from ancient India. And so there again, it's a holistic system, just like Chinese traditional medicine, where you look at everything in your life. So the idea that yoga as exercise, like the West has done it, yoga is just supposed to be part of eating properly, using different spices and herbs in your foods, different cleansing rituals and exercises. I mean, it is a whole system, which they're ancient in China and India, and their culture is based on it. And we've lost a lot of that ancient wisdom, especially since the Industrial Revolution in our culture, because new science has seemed to be so much, I don't know, more exciting and shiny to most people. And
there's the component to the adage battlefield medicine, where conventional medicine shines for that, for sure. But as a modality for, let's say, prevention, for the holistic view of things versus compartmentalizing everything,
right.
I think that's where the differences between those Eastern medicines and what's come to be known Western medicine, conventional medicine, allopathic medicine, that's where they deviate. It's not that one cancels out the other. I think they are perfectly suited to be adjunct and integrative. In fact, I wish they would be a lot more. And so there is value in all of that.
Right. And it kind of echoes the idea that science, or the way of thinking of science, breaks things down into smaller and smaller bits. And so Western medicine is treating a small thing, a very specific thing. It's a symptom sometimes of a larger whole, but it doesn't necessarily get treated that way because they're focusing very closely on one small thing. And now we're in a time when we can integrate, because we have the ancient knowledge available and we have the new science and medicine available. We can bring it all together and take the best of all of it and see how it all works together, because we should use that scientific knowledge, all that we've gained, to see, oh, why does Chinese medicine work? Why does Indian medicine work?
There's a beauty in the fact that science actually, especially most recently, is validating the things that the ancients observed and knew. And so what was once considered woo-woo, and out there and so forth. So now modern science is actually validating that. That can be read in double-blind placebo, studies, and they're written in journals. And it's a really nice thing to discover that, for example, that qi is not this mystical thing. It is actually could be described as the gasotransmitters that are moving through the body. So not just oxygen and carbon dioxide, but also nitric oxide and hydrogen sulfide, and how they open and close the circulatory system to pump blood through and help allow nutrients and antioxidants and so forth to engage in the organs. And then those pathways are then now what we call the channels, or what used to be called the meridians. And so that pathway to which these gases move now actually have a function, and Western medicine has, and science has actually proven that, which is nice to know that it's not just this concept.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not a concept medicine. It actually has basis, and now there is proof to back that up, which is really nice.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have felt when I have gone into these different modalities for my own healing is that I feel like acupuncture and the herbal medicines, or I almost said it like they say it in Sri Lanka, which is herbal, the herbal medicines, are very subtle. So if I go, when I first start noticing that something feels a little off, the subtle rebalancing can get me back on my path to health. Whereas if I wait and wait and wait and then go to the doctor and they take tests, sometimes what I'm feeling doesn't show up on their tests because it's not bad enough for whatever they're treating. And so that's where I've turned a lot more toward natural medicine, almost, exclusively. I don't find that I need to go to the Western medical doctor as much.
That's a really good point, because I think that part of my mission is to educate people how to listen to their bodies a lot more acutely than they have been. And when you wait for things to get really bad, that's the point where you may need Western medicine intervention, so surgery or whatnot, right? But if you can teach yourself to actually pay attention to the subtle signs so that you can use herbal remedies and herbal formulas the way that these 1,000-year-old traditions have refined over the years and perfected, and they continue to perfect them, that you can actually stop a progression of a disease rather than wait till it's at its end stage, right? And so that's the aim of all practitioners, to try to be that kind of doctor, so that instead of treating the
Focus
disease
on
after
health,
it's already been,
yeah.
Versus trying to stop it before it begins.
Right.
That would be the ideal, right?
Yeah.
So I treat somewhere in the middle.
Okay. One of the things that I was thinking of between all the different types of herbal medicine and like what plants we would plant in our yard, I noticed this in Sri Lanka, that I'm familiar with cilantro from Mexican food.
Yep.
There, it's the coriander plant leaf, and they use the coriander seed, they use the spice coriander in food, and it's healing in different ways. When you have a cough, they tell you to boil the coriander seeds and drink that as a tea to get rid of a certain type of cough. And then my mom likes to watch her favorite old shows on cable when she finds them. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying. I love it because I study pop culture. So it was an episode of Martial Law where there's a Chinese policeman who comes to the U.S. and he's working with Arsenio Hall, and they're cops in, I think, L.A. Is it L.A.? And they're both talking about their favorite home remedies for not feeling well. And he orders it from China, and Arsenio's like, I don't know, collard greens or something. And when they get them together, it's the same plant.
Right.
So the connection, we call it different things, but we all turn to these home remedies. And often, especially, some of them are grown all over the world, or there are varieties that are consistent all over the world.
You'll find very similar plants along the same latitudes across the globe, right? With similar growing soil conditions, weather conditions, and then, pollution has an effect these days on harvesting, pesticides, heavy metals, that type of thing. And
so I
it
noticed
really needs to
you
be.
sell herbs that are grown in, is it Tibet or is it Nepal? I get those mixed up.
It's
because they're
actually
both
certain
up.
parts of Tibet. Yeah,
Okay.
so which is, in certain circles is China, and other circles is still Tibet. So there are still really rather untouched, unmined plateaus in those regions, which are.
So their soil is rich and not contaminated?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are botanical pharmacologists from the universities that go out there, and they do soil testing, they do heavy metal testing and pesticide testing. They test the water, they test the soil, they're checking the particulates in the air just to see what quality of herb they're actually harvesting, and they also harvest it sustainably, so they'll do it by season, and they won't over-harvest. And so it's really an excellent source for me, because normally herbs have tended to come, at least in the last 20 years or so through third or fourth party, and I get mine now direct. So I feel really fortunate for that. Yeah,
Cool.
I have my own scientists.
So do you grow any yourself in your garden just for your
I
own
have
happiness?
grown Western herbs. I think the herbs that do a lot of crossover that I use, that people will be familiar with in their kitchen or in their cupboards, would be things like ginger, which I don't grow, but and licorice, people have heard of, and so these are all components that we've studied in school. What part of the plant, how it interacts with other plants, what it does for a particular condition, and also a big part of the training is herb-drug interaction. That's a big issue, especially these days, taking blood thinners, taking all sorts of things.
Right.
And so some of those herbs will accentuate that, and so you can't have that with different medications. And there's also, I have a fantastic source that is always up to date on herb-drug interactions, because every week it seems like there's new pharmaceuticals coming out, right?
Right.
So you need to stay on top of that.
And pharmaceuticals are derived mostly from herbs, right? But they're
That's how they began.
Yeah.
So aspirin came from willow bark, right? So and even now, herbs are literally dissected down to their active ingredient, and then the pharmaceutical companies want to patent that particular active ingredient or that molecule or whatever it is that works. But unfortunately, sometimes too much is too much, and then you get that list of side effects. So you've seen those 30-second commercials, 15 seconds of which is how you can die from it. And,
right.
and
they're showing happy scenes, and the
people
voiceover
frolicking,
underneath is like, and you can die from this and this and this and this and this and this.
Right. And,
yeah.
And so a lot of what we studied in terms of putting the herbs together is how much is safe, what herb it will is contraindicated with, what it will actually interfere with, and dosages. And that's super important. So unfortunately, when there have been studies in Western medicine for fad things like weight loss and so forth, they'll overuse a particular component. And guess what? People get hurt, people have died and so forth. And then the FDA is like, oh, let's take that off the shelves. Well, you wouldn't have had to do that if you knew exactly what dosage a trained herbalist would know. Ephedra, for example,
right.
that was like our star herb for bronchitis, asthma, things like that. And when they used it in concentrated form to try to use it for weight loss, sure, it started tachycardia and other issues, and then they cocktailed it with a bunch of other stuff. Couldn't figure out which one so they just took everything off the market. Right?
Why don't they do that for all the pharmaceuticals that are having all these side effects?
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they fast track a lot of things, and then unfortunately, people have a poor reaction to it, and then 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, you'll find that the FDA will pull that as well. So even their own products. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. So how would you, what is your elevator pitch for when you run into somebody and you want to tell them what you do, so that before you go, everybody watching can know, why should they come to you? What can you do for us all?
What I can do for people. Oftentimes I am approached when conventional medicine has kind of run out of ideas, and especially with chronic pervasive conditions that either they've run out of ideas or people just don't want to take the plethora of medicine bottles, and they're stacking up in their cabinets, and they want to cut back on the cholesterol and the high blood pressure pills and the diabetes medication and so forth. And I can actually help either avoid something in the future or bring certain levels down back to preferable levels. So, for example, diabetes, A1C levels and so forth, I actually have, through not only just the herbs, but also dietary advice and specific exercises. You mentioned yoga. So through my education, it's been Qigong and Tai Chi and those. So they're all movements that don't require battering of the joints and so forth. So they're very gentle, but they move the organs, they move the blood, they move and they keep you fluid and moving, so that as we get older, the concentration is less on strength and more on fluidity and flexibility, which I think is actually more desirable and very important as we age.
Yeah.
So chronic issues is generally what people
Okay.
come to see me for. So yeah, a lot of women's health issues. I have maybe 85-90% of my clients are women, because they tend to go to the doctor and take care of themselves. But they'll bring their husbands and their brothers and their cousins, and so about 15% of my people are also men who want to take care of themselves. And I think that's beautiful, and I'd encourage more of that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So your website is martinaeberhard.com, yes?
Correct. That's my full name. And I also have a Facebook page where I post articles, and that's Extraordinary Medicine, resources for your optimal wellness. And I also have a Instagram for those people who are technically and social media inclined.
Who like
So-
pictures more than words? That's what I find
Yeah.
Instagram is more the draw.
Yeah. So the Facebook is more for articles, and I'll cite studies and
Okay.
yeah, so little tidbits.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
You may give her applause now.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so now we have another music video before we bring up our next guest. It's called Child of This Universe, and it has some great lyrics. So go ahead and run that film. We are all children of this universe. She's a lovely woman that I first met through Contagious Optimism, which is available on Amazon streaming if you want to check that out. Speaking of, health and contagion, we might as well be contagious about optimism. So our next guest to talk about our universe and interfaith solidarity is Daniel Tam. Come on up, Daniel. I feel like a game show host. Come on down. All right. We're going to play for money now. I don't know where the money's coming from.
Take
it's from the universe.
Interfaith for 200.
It is a lot of letters. Interfaith Solidarity Network.
Well, it's so interesting because I was thinking about that as I was sitting there, because everything that's come along this evening is all about a network of a solidarity and of interfaith. It's like there's a faith, there's a belief in the universe, there's a belief in our own energy. Whether we believe it's God-given, as I do, or it's just comes from the universe, as other people may. It's interfaith is already, solidarity is almost redundant because interfaith is already connected,
Yeah.
And then solidarity is just even creating a stronger bond.
Yeah.
And network is like reaching out, it's like, let's everybody come in and be together on this,
Yeah, I like it.
Just thought of that.
Oh, good. Well, hey, good job.
That's new,
So
No, inspired by just sitting here and being amongst all of you.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
yeah,
Well, good.
Yeah.
So I first heard of the Interfaith Solidarity Network from Soraya Dean, who is a fellow Sri Lankan. And I heard her speak at an interfaith event in the Conejo Valley. And so I started following her on Facebook, and then I saw when she announced this. And then I was so excited to see the Climate Action and
Right.
Environmental Justice Committee
Right.
starting. So tell us how that
Yeah.
came about.
Well, Interfaith Solidarity Network came about to begin with wanting to come together, march together to show solidarity, that we've got your back, that we're not alone.
Right.
And there was another march just this past spring, and there'll be another one on October 27th. And so check out the website and and join us. But we also knew that it's good to come together, it's good to march and all of that, but there is, the energy of interfaith means that, we need to go be out in the world. We need to take action. And there were a couple of things that resonated very strongly with us. I've worked a great deal with homelessness solutions, and one of our committees that emerged was a homelessness committee. And then in the last couple of years, I've really immersed myself in environmentalism, climate change. I get into action when I get angry, okay?
Yeah.
Let me put it to you that way.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that people were like denying climate change,
Yeah.
just really got to me. So the Climate Change Environmental Justice Committee, which I'm chairing, it's about taking action, faithful action in God for the world. Faithful action. Faithful is not just about believing, I think. Faithful is going in the opposite direction from fear. I think the
yeah.
opposite of fear is faith. Faith that we know that we're in the right place, that we belong here, that, for me, that God has given us this extraordinary planet and universe. What I want to do back is just say thank you and take care of that.
Yeah.
There's so much goodness and joy in taking care of the planet. And that's the message that we want to spread. And then the environmental justice piece is, the people who create the pollution, the market forces that create the pollution, live the farthest away from where it actually happens. And it's usually in places where the people don't have the means to protect themselves.
Right.
So that's injustice. So we're going to explore, and since we're based right here in the San Fernando Valley, we're gonna start in our own backyard and look at where are the areas where people don't have access to the power of decision making when it comes to their own environment. And we want to be able to go in and work with communities right here in the valley.
Yeah.
And just to sort of like let them know about the resources they already have but might not know about it.
Okay, so what are some of those resources? What comes to mind?
Well, first of all, let's just start with the very basic power of the vote,
Yeah.
okay? We're in Granada Hills. This is Council District 12.
And there's a vote coming up.
There's an election coming up on August 13th.
Of
And
course,
without getting into
yeah, we
any...
can't say anything.
Yeah, we
because
won't do
we're-
that,
yeah,
but I
encourage you to
encourage you to
vote.
look at the candidates and look at what they stand for
Yeah.
and look at where they stand on, on everything
Issues
we've been
that
talking
are
about
important to
tonight.
us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right there, and being able to spread the message to people and let them know that they've got power.
Yeah.
And power is not a bad thing.
No.
Power is a good
And
thing.
we have more power when we come together to
Precisely.
use it. One of the
Precisely.
things I've been getting involved in, kind of not from my own choice really, but I found it interesting, is to get involved in the neighborhood councils, which I got involved with because my father is very involved. And so I have found that there are great resources that I didn't know were there. And even yesterday, a question came up, and I remembered hearing that Tony Cardenas, our local House representative, I
Member
think.
of Congress.
Yeah. He has a mobile office, and he is available, or his staff is available to answer questions on immigration, on legal matters, on all kinds of things. They'll help you get your passport sorted out, all kinds of things. And they come to the Mid-Valley Regional Library, and they're there. And I thought that was amazing enough that I remembered it.
Yeah.
So when I heard a story about somebody who needed that kind of help, I found that information,
Yeah.
and it was yesterday, and sent them over. So we really do, through our neighborhood councils, have access
Yeah.
to a lot of assistance in
Right.
all different areas.
Right. There's also, my day job is that I work with LA Sanitation and Environment. And I'm basically preaching the gospel of sustainability and resiliency and all of that, all of the things that they do that no one really knows that they do. I mean, we depend on LA Sanitation and Environment to collect our trash and to handle the wastewater, but what else is going on? And specifically in this area of environmental justice, we're planting trees for a greater, greener LA.
When and where?
We
Sign me up.
over the course of the next couple of years, the city's committed to planting upwards of 90,000 trees.
Wow.
And you can go right to the website of lacitysan.org. That's the LA Sanitation and Environment website, and look for lacitysan.org/trees.
Okay.
And you'll find out how someone will, if you want a tree in your parkway right in front of your house, in
we've
front
done that.
of this building here on Chatsworth Street, just, give them a call, and someone will come out and consult with you.
And we called 311 for that. We had a tree fall, and,
okay.
and then we signed up with street trees. Through this LA City SAN, I found
Brilliant.
a link.
You're way ahead of me.
Well, I've gone to the cool organic gardening and composting
Yeah.
workshops at Sylmar at the landfill.
Yeah.
And got
Lopez
my
Canyon.
compost bin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that the city is doing so much, and I didn't know until I started looking into it and trying to find what resources were available.
Right. There you go.
And now I know who to turn to because I really feel like there's an opportunity to combine anything that we do for the homeless with an ecological and sustainable approach. And so I would love to see ways, and actually the field trip that I chose for, because each episode we choose a field trip, or I choose a field trip, is urban foraging. Because I saw a documentary called Weed Eater about a woman who finds edible plants, and she'll lead people through their neighborhoods to identify the weeds that we think are just troublesome, sometimes actually have health benefits. And so if we could teach homeless people that there are plants all around. I mean, in Sri Lanka, homeless people they do better than they do here because there's fruit trees everywhere, and so they can live off of the land to a certain extent. So here, or an eco-village that they can farm and grow food and support each other. I really, more and more am pulled in the direction of finding out how it's possible to make this happen for our homeless people, since they're in a kind of opportunity place where they need something, and why not start with a whole new way of being?
Well, they need a house.
They do. They
need to
they
be
need
able
a
to
home.
come inside.
Yeah.
And people experiencing homelessness, we have opportunities right here in Council District 12, as a matter of fact. Every single council district in the city of Los Angeles, all 15 of them, committed to at least approving 222 units of supportive housing
Okay.
or bridge housing, temporary housing. And every single council district has done it to one extent or another. Some a whole lot, some just a handful, but they've all tried. Council District 12.
Really?
0, nilch,
Interesting.
nada, rien.
So does that include
That's gotta change.
like tiny houses or?
Well,
I
the
mean-
Mayor Garcetti has a program called A Bridge Home, which is underway, and there's funding for it and all of that. There's proposals just about in every council district for it. That could happen here as well. It's
Okay.
meant to be a temporary emergency housing for people to stabilize their lives before they move on.
Right.
To either permanent supportive housing or their own housing or wherever. But at least it's a means of getting folks to come in off the street.
Right.
That's another thing that where people can go into action, and that's an expression of resiliency that I think goes hand in hand with environmentalism, and taking care of our planet and
Taking care of
those who
each
live
other.
in it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I remember I was studying about tree canopies and how communities are healthier when they have a lot of trees planted, going back to planting so many trees.
Right.
And there was a connection between, in Singapore, when they switched from being a really run-down developing country to the very modern and beautiful city that they are, one of the first things they did was not just plant trees, but get people off the streets, because that helped sanitation, and then that helped community, and then that helped everything. And once those people had a home, they had an address, they could get a job, their health was improved, everything. So it all goes hand in hand to having a sustainable community,
Right,
which
truly,
is
yeah.
nature and nurture all together. We have a hand from our audience and a microphone, a mic for Mike.
So I'm curious, I have two questions. The first one is with Council District 12 and the homeless situation, is that a NIMBY thing or lack of will or because Mitch retired or?
Well, I'm going to sort of avoid all the political pitfalls here and just
Right.
simply say, because it's a fact, that it's really just a lack of understanding, a lack of education, a lack of really knowing what is available. And what, and for people to know, what's, what is the city of Los Angeles trying to do? And to really finding out what that is. And then for people having those conversations, having a conversation right here, for instance, about it, with the community here, other faith communities getting together and having a conversation about, well, who are these people? And what is the reality? What is the truth? For instance, there's this widespread idea that if you start, offering services to people, that they're all going to start coming to that district, and they're all going to come. Well, they're all going to get on a bus from Chicago and come to Granada Hills and become homeless. Let's be homeless in Granada. There's a vast majority of the people who are experiencing homelessness are right from here.
Right.
Everywhere in the city. The studies are extensive. It's been proven. They're right from the neighborhood where
Right.
they are now experiencing
Well,
homelessness.
and the cost of housing, of course, is part of it.
There's that as well. But I think having the conversation is an important thing
Right.
for clergy to really reflect on this and then to preach about it. Who is my neighbor, right? Who is my neighbor? And then making some decisions as a community, like what can we do? What can we do that is not what we would call toxic charity, but real love, real agape, where we're helping people move on to their next step in the journey,
So toxic charity is, to use the biblical, giving a fish versus teaching a man to fish.
Perfect analogy.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect example, exactly right. Yeah,
So it's trusting that the person who needs help is capable,
yeah.
and they just need help for a minute
Yeah.
Whatever.
and can step forward.
And
Yeah.
yes,
I'm sorry, and then to switch gears, because I'll talk to you about this after
sure.
the presentation, but, so is there any way to get a tour of the water treatment plant that they do down there?
What a great question. Yes, there is.
And how do you go about doing that? 'Cause I drive by it all the time, I think, God, that place
Well,
looks amazing.
I brought a couple of things, and I have copies of them out front.
Are you talking about the water treatment plant
The water
off of Woodley?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
DC Tillman water reclamation plant.
Yeah.
And right next door is what?
The Japanese garden.
Exactly. How many folks have been there? All right.
That was going to
okay.
be one of our field trips, but that month kind of fell by the wayside.
I think Mike
so
is organizing it right
We're
now.
working
He's
on that
starting
field
it
trip.
right now.
That's part of the urban foraging.
So the DC Tillman Water Reclamation Plant, and it's a really interesting thing that's happening right now regarding that. Imported water is really expensive. And the city of Los Angeles is trying to reduce the amount of imported water that we use. So we're diverting water from that normally goes elsewhere and coming from the East Valley over to DC Tillman, and it's being cleaned, many times, several times, right, in a cleaning process, and then being sent back over to these seeding grounds near Hanson Dam over there, where it will go down into the earth for a natural cleaning process known as ozonation, and then down into the aquifer. That water will then be able to come up and be able to be used for all kinds of things. Certainly, what we use recycled water for now. The point being, we're just using our groundwater. We're using the water that's coming from the sky, and we're reusing that water so that we can reduce the amount of potable water that we're importing. It's a big project, but it's going to pay big dividends down the line. And so I'm going to let and this card right here, and again, you can find it at www.lacitysand.org. You can find out all about it. The Groundwater Replenishment Project is here. And then the trees and everything else that we're trying to accomplish through sustainability. But it's the actions that I was talking about before, as far as having a conversation about homelessness. Exact same thing can be done with the environment, with climate change. Coming together, as a community and really talking about, well, what is it? What's the reality of it? And what values would we call upon that would impel us into action? And then what actions might we take? And some of those might be, clergy, again, preaching on this, about it.
And some might be joining you at the next meeting of your committee.
Joining us at the next meeting of our committee, and that will be on the website. We'll see that on the website. And also, what legislation can people be? Writing letters. Writing letters to the editor, about the urgency. Loving, urgent, passionate letters that are reaching out, to the rest of our neighbors and saying, hey, we have a situation on our hands here, and it's in our control if we take action on it. Like that.
Like that. So love over fear,
Love over
connection over separation. I think we got it.
I think so, too.
All right. Voting over
Voting
not voting,
over
right.
not
Engaging
voting.
over disengaging. How about putting it that way?
Truly.
All right. Well, at this point, we're just going to say a little closing. Let's take a minute to just be grateful for this time together, for each other, for the opportunity to share this via live stream. And there's an opportunity here as well as online to send love offerings, donations to support this program, to send us communications about what you are passionate about and what we can learn more about. And then I'll say thank you to everybody who is here. I think I have some cool slides too. Let's see if this is still on. First, thank yous for the Center for Spiritual Living Granada Hills. Thank you to Mike McMorrow and Stephanie, Mike Harland, and the whole board.
And Milena for bringing us together tonight.
Thank you, yes. Thank you for thanking me.
Well done.
And so the urban foraging field trip will be, there's one this Saturday, and there's one Saturday, August 3rd. So I'm going to see who's interested. And if I don't hear from anybody, I'm just going to go to whichever one I like, and I'll report back. And I'll work with with the Rev here to figure out when we might go see some water reclamation in process and do that as part of our delayed field trip from a couple months ago. So
Excellent.
Thank you everyone, and have a happy, flourishing time wherever and whenever you're watching this.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Cool.
That was great.
Well done. So I didn't get to church this